Hi, this is Rachelle at Scrapcraftastic, and I am back to work on Junk Journal July. I will be doing 4 prompts in one today in an effort to catch up. So I will be doing day 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are Symmetry, Bouquet, Wallpaper, and Clashing Patterns. So to start, I have this piece of cardstock that I had printed and found out that I couldn't use it commercially. So just to keep from accidentally using it, I decided not to use it. And I'm using it as a scrap paper. I'll be using the back side. I'm using some Mod Podge, a brush from Dollar Tree, and this random napkin that I had in my stash. I think I bought a pack of these either from Tuesday Morning or Dollar Tree, but I'm pretty sure it was Tuesday Morning. The pattern on the napkin looks kind of like wallpaper, and I'm also thinking that this pattern is pretty much going to clash with anything that I have in my stash. So I am going to Mod Podge it on the back of this piece of cardstock. So here I'm laying down the napkin first, and I've already put Mod Podge on half of the cardstock. So then I'm just going to position the cardstock over the napkin and stick it to the napkin that way. It's easier for me to do it this way, and I find that I get less wrinkles when I do it this way. And I often just do half of something. I mentioned this in previous videos. I do half with the glue and then the other half. I probably could have done the whole thing here, but better safe than sorry. So yeah, I'm just applying the Mod Podge to the other half of the cardstock. This will also act as the base for this page, and it will just be one page. And I can tell you now that I do go way overboard, and this gets really weird, but I'm gonna go with it and not sweat it. So just forewarning, it's gonna get weird. So I accidentally tore the napkin a little bit there, but I'm able to patch it up when I go over the top of the napkin with another layer of Mod Podge. So I've finished applying the Mod Podge. I'm gonna go wash out my brush and continue on with the next step. So I kind of want to use these images as part of this layout. So I'm going to fussy cut out 2 of the graphics that are similar here, 2 of the ladies that look similar. And I'll go ahead and fussy cut those while I am waiting on the Mod Podge to dry. So I have those fussy cut and ready to go later on in the project. And I also have this scrap piece. I think this was from a kit I got from Calico Collage that I will also be using for this project. So many of you have asked, what do I do with the washi graveyards? Well, we're going to use one today. Some of these are not really washi graveyards. They are a type of washi graveyard where I just did a collage with washi tape. Then here I am getting into the sheets that are actually washi graveyards, where it was just leftover tape or tape that wasn't quite sticky that I was using in my planner. So I did that for several months and then I stopped. So I'm just looking through these, trying to decide which one I would like to cut into. And I had missed one, so I think this was the last one that I worked on. It is a little incomplete, and I'm just going to use some washi tape that I have over to my side and go ahead and fill it in. So I start out using some pieces from the washi tape that I got from Lauren Phelps Designs, and then I also have a little stack of pieces that were left over from the other day that are stuck to my camera rig, so I'm going to use some of those as well. And I'm just going through filling in any empty spaces that I find. Now that I've filled everything in, I'm getting out the Mod Podge and my Dollar Tree brush again and just going over the entire page, trying to make sure that some of the little pieces that aren't stuck very well get adhered to the sheet. So already I think we have done wallpaper, and by using some of the washi graveyard, we've got patterns that don't match. What was the specific term? Clashing patterns, yes. So just looking at the washi, it's a clashing pattern all by itself. But I have more clashing patterns to come. Okay, so now I've let both the washi graveyard and the napkin decoupage dry. So I am ready to start using those pieces. I have this misprint insert. I'm going to use it to make a template. So I'm just going to draw on it briefly. I'm going to try and sketch out a vase, half of a vase or a vase. And I don't really like that first one, so I flipped it over and I'm going to try again. On the first try, I got it too close to the bottom and I wouldn't be able to round it like I wanted to, so I just moved up a little bit on the other side of the paper, or on the side where the fold is, and I'm drawing the vase again. So now I'm just going to take my scissors and cut out the shape. And this is the shape of the vase. And I'm just going to clean up some of the edge on the bottom, make sure it's the correct shape. So now that I have that, I am ready to trace the shape on the washi graveyard. So I'm placing it on the washi graveyard and trimming out a piece that I will use to cut out the vase shape. And I'm just drawing the vase onto the back of the washi graveyard and fussy cutting it out. And if you have shapes that are the same on both sides, that's a great way to make yourself a template, and then your final piece will be as close to the same on both sides as you can do it if you are fussy cutting. Of course, you could always use a digital cutting machine, but sometimes you just want to get the scissors and get in there and cut it out yourself. So now I have my clashing patterns, wallpaper ready to go. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess napkin and trim down the base piece. This will be the piece that attaches to the back of the page from day 3, 4, and was it 4, 5, and 6? 3, 4, and 5. I'm getting confused because I'm doing multiple days in one spread. So here I'm just trimming off the excess and trimming down my base to 5.5 by 8.5. And I'm just checking the trimmed piece to make sure that it will fit well on the back of the page. And I'm trimming off the little pieces of napkin that were hanging off the edges. Here I'm taking my other base piece and making sure that I'll have enough margin around the edge to punch once everything is put together. Most everything that I'm using for this layout is digital except for the napkin decoupaged piece. So I have this digital paper here that I'm going to use to make a gatefold, which a gatefold, if you don't know, is like two doors that come together and close in the center, which to me speaks of symmetry. So far I have symmetry covered, I have clashing patterns, and because the napkin kind of looks like wallpaper, as well as my other base piece, we have the wallpaper covered. So the only thing left at this point is the bouquet. So here I am trimming off the white margins from this pattern paper, and I've already determined how big I need the doors to be, so I am trimming the paper down to the size that I need to make my gatefold doors. Now I'm going to get out the scoreboard and I am going to score 1 inch on each door to make room for the flap to wrap around the base piece. And here I'm just dry fitting to make sure that the door is closed properly and that everything fits together like I want it to. Now I'm just mitering the flaps on the doors so that when I attach them, that little piece of the page of the flap does not show. So here I'm playing around with the placement of the framed ladies. I definitely want to use them, but it turns out they are too big for my doors. I considered trimming off the edge of the frames, but even with doing that, I think they would still be too big and they would interfere with what I want to do for a closure. So I do have to have something to hold these doors closed, and having the framed ladies on the outside is not going to work. So while I am thinking about what to do with them, I'm going to go ahead and make the closure for the gatefold doors. I'm using the leftover piece of cardstock that I decoupaged with the napkin. I'm going to use a 1/8 inch, I believe it's a 1/8 inch hole punch. It might be 1/16, but I think it's 1/8 inch. I'm going to use a very small hole punch to punch a hole. This will be the center hole for my banker style closure. I'm going to call them buttons. So this will be my center for my banker style closure button. And then I'm going to go over it with a larger circle. I first try my scallop punch. I think it's too big. And then I have a 1.5 inch punch. I think it's the same size as the scallop, and that's too big. So I am going to go with my 1 inch punch, and I punch the small hole first so that I can center the bigger hole around it. It's easier to get it centered doing it that way versus punching the big hole first and then, or the big circle first, then trying to punch the hole in the center. So I'm going to repeat that same process here. Punch the small hole and then use the circle punch and center it around the small hole. Here I'm putting the doors together, lining them up so that I can find the center and mark it. Then I am going to use my retractable awl or my pokey tool to punch a hole in both doors so that I can use a brad to add the button closures. And I'll need 2 brads for this, one for each door. And I go ahead and put the decoupage buttons on with the brad, and I do that for both doors. And then I'm feeling like they blend in a little too much. So you may have noticed that for the other pages for Junk Journal July, I have been using black. Well, I'm going to incorporate it again here, and I'm going to go ahead and use that scallop circle punch and use a scrap piece of black cardstock to punch out 2 of those scallop circles. And I'm going to find the center with my pokey tool, punch a hole through the center on both circles, and then add them to the existing circles and brad to give a little contrast between the decoupage piece and the door, because they were just blending in too much. It needed something contrasting there. So I think that the scalloped black cardstock did the trick. Here I'm just opening up the brad and making sure that those button closures are secure. Here I'm taking the masking tape to cover the prongs of the brads. This is a digital paper that I printed some time ago. I have a whole stack of digitals on my desk, and I just pulled one that I thought might work. It has a misprint on the other side, but I am just going ahead and cutting off the white edges, and I'm going to try and decide which side to use. Actually, the misprint side matches almost perfectly with my base piece, so I think I'm going to use the side that is actually the good print because it clashes a little bit with my base piece. So we still want to work on those clashing patterns. So I am going to attach that pattern paper to the inside gatefold door. I'm focusing quite a bit of glue around the brad area to make sure that this sticks well, because the paper that I'm adding to the inside of the door is not a very heavy paper. It's not a cardstock, it's just paper. And I'm using a Dollar Tree silicone makeup spatula to spread the glue. In here, I'm just lining up the pattern paper on the inside door, trying not to get too close to that fold. Don't want to go over the fold, you just want to get right next to it. And here I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess. Burnishing it down, making sure that glue is spread and attaching well. And I'm going to repeat that same process on the other door. So now that both doors are covered, I'm going to go ahead and add the string closure to the buttons. So I'm just lifting up that circle just a little bit, the first circle, and tying the ribbon underneath in between the scallop and the decoupage circles. And I'm tying a knot that should catch around the brad that's holding everything together. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of glue on that knot to hold it in place to make sure that that ribbon doesn't come off. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the doors to the base piece, lining the base up to the fold, but not going over that fold. And I'm burnishing the fold, make sure that it is folded well, still folding properly, and also burnishing where I glued the door to the base. And I'm going to repeat the process for the other door. So just making sure that everything lines up, burnishing everything down, reinforcing those folds. So the gatefold doors are done. That is an element of symmetry. Here I'm just dry fitting to make sure that, again, it's going to work on the actual base for the whole project. And now I'm going to work on the inside. So I have the vase, which is going to hold the bouquet. Here I'm taking my black Stabilo pencil and going around the vase to kind of give it an outline, a little shadow, and trying to help it stand out from the background that I'm going to put it on a little bit more. Once I finish outlining it, I'm going to take a brush and a little water here and kind of try to do a little shading with it and also make the line a little less intense. So now I'm just auditioning pieces for the background of the vase. I'm going to use some scraps to build a platform for the vase to sit on. It's always a good idea to anchor things on the page instead of just having them floating around in space. So that is what I am building with the scraps. A table, a counter, however you want to look at it. So after quite an extensive auditioning process, I finally come up with a layout for the scraps that I want to use under the vase. And I'm going to go ahead and start gluing down those pieces. So after I made the space for the vase to rest, I was looking at the folds where the door attaches to the base piece, and I didn't like that little white space was showing. I could easily fix that with ink, but I was still trying not to use ink on this project. I'll probably use ink moving forward after this though, because I miss it a little bit. So anyway, I'm taking this piece of vertical washi tape from Lauren Phelps Designs, adding a little glue stick to it, and I'm going to use it to cover the white space that is showing through the fold. And I'm going to do that for both folds. And I'm just trimming off the excess. Okay, so now I am back to figuring out how to use the framed ladies, and I decide to use them on the inside right in the fold, and I'm going to take them and cut them in half so that I can place them on either side of the fold. My reasoning for cutting them in half was to reduce the bulk in the fold. Sometimes when you put things in a fold like that, they will pucker up, and I didn't want that to happen, so I cut them in half, and then I will put them back together on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and add some art glitter glue to the frame, half of the framed lady, and add her to the page, and do the same thing for the other half. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with the other framed lady. Now I'm going to work on the last prompt. I've got the clashing patterns, I've got the wallpaper, I've got the symmetry. Now we're going to work on the bouquet. So I had this scrap from the same collection that the framed ladies are from. It's by Elegant Creations here on YouTube. It's a digital. And so I like the way the flowers looked. So I went searching for more scraps that had those flowers. And I was able to find a few more pieces. So I am going to fussy cut a few of those out, thinking that I wanted to use those for my bouquet. But once I started playing around with them, I felt like they blended into the page a little too much. Actually, looking at it here, now that I'm editing, looking at it from a different angle, they look perfectly fine. But I didn't think so at the time. So then I went to my bag of goodies to see what else I had. I do have some roses, some die cut roses in there, and I was just auditioning other elements, other florals to see what I could do for the bouquet. Then I found this copper colored floral. I probably should have used that one, but I found that and it reminded me that I had more flowers in another bag from Prima Marketing. So I went on the hunt for those, and I started auditioning florals from that set of flowers. And I was even considering mixing those in with some of the fussy cut and die cut flowers, which I eventually end up doing. But for the most part, I am going to use these Prima Marketing florals. So I start out with the bright lime green flower. I'm going to use that as a base, and then I start building around it with the other flowers that I have available. So once I am somewhat happy with the arrangement, I start gluing down the pieces. I started with the vase, and then I'm going to move to the flowers. And as you can see, the vase to me doesn't really stand out. It's so subtle, it seems like it's part of the background. So I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I started out with the lime green flower as the base in the background. Then I'll add all the other flowers around that. I also did go ahead and add in some of the die cut flowers and a little bit of the fussy cut flowers. You can't really see them much, but they are there. I think the blue was probably a mistake. I wish I had another small blue flower that I could add somewhere else. And if I come across one, I may go back and add it later. I also kind of wish I'd added the black flowers. Again, a lot of the times it doesn't look the same in person as it does on film. So some things I see now I probably would change. And if I do go back and change anything, I will definitely share that with you. But for now, I left it as is. So I'm just still adding the final touches, adding the final layering of the florals. So I think I'm going to leave it here for the bouquet. I wish it stood out a little bit more than it does. If I can come up with a way to make it pop a little bit more, I'll definitely come back and let you know. So now I am ready to attach this to the base piece. I'm going to use Fabri-Tac because this is a pretty bulky piece and I want to make sure that it sticks well on the decoupage napkin. So I'm just lining that up carefully, trying to get it as close to the center as possible. And again, making sure that I leave enough space on the edge for this to be punched. So now I'm coming back in with the Fabri-Tac for on the main base piece that will attach to the back of the previous layout, which was day 3, 4, and 5. And again, I'm using the Fabri-Tac because this is bulky and I just want to make sure that I get a good stick. And I'm lining that up on that back piece as best as I can. Also making sure to, once again, avoid the fold and make sure I don't have anything hanging off the edges. And to make sure everything adheres well, I'm taking these Dollar Tree craft clips and clipping the two pieces together while that glue sets up. So I've let this sit for a little while. I'm back to remove the clips, punch it, and add it to my journal. So I'm just giving it one last check, looking it over. Seems okay until I open the other side and it is stuck together. Oh, I don't know how that happened unless the glue was still wet underneath. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it was the art glitter glue seeped out from behind and it just stuck together. So it wasn't dry and I thought it was. So, and there's no way that I can fix that by peeling it back over or whatever. So luckily I have another digital with that same image. And I pull that out and I am going to actually cut out just the oval part. I'm not going to cut out the frame. So instead of using the art glitter glue this time, I'm going to use glue stick. It's a little less wet. This paper is thin and that may have had something to do with it sticking together and me thinking it was dry when it wasn't. And I'm not even going to worry about her being in the fold and adding bulk to that fold because apparently that doesn't help very much either. So yeah, I just added her with the glue stick and then I'm going to touch up and go over her with some Mod Podge, just a thin layer of Mod Podge. While she is drying, and even though I shouldn't be folding this, I am, but while she's drying, I'm going to go ahead and get out my heavy duty arc punch and punch the holes very carefully on this page. And thank goodness it came out okay. So now I'm going to put the tags back in the previous layout and I'm going back over to check on my framed ladies. So it seems like she's mostly dry at this point. And I'm going to try and keep that from happening again. I know a lot of mixed media artists do this and I just didn't think of it at the time. But I have this Tim Holtz Distress Glaze that kind of helps prevent things like that from happening. It keeps your pages from sticking together in your art journal, so it should work here too. So I'm just going to apply a layer of that over both of the framed ladies, and hopefully that will keep them from sticking together. And I'm using a paper towel just to polish and smooth that glaze into the image. Okay, so I think it's kind of like business on the outside and a party on the inside, maybe. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so that's it. I'm going to close this up and go ahead and pop it into the journal. And this is what it looks like in the journal. The discs kind of get in the way a little bit, but if I lift the page up some, it's fine. I'm just still experimenting with different layouts and styles of layout. So, yeah, using the disc does present its own unique challenges. So, hopefully, by the end of this month, I will learn how to work around a journal with discs, at least a junk journal with discs. Okay, so that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you may be interested in these other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.